Paul here from My Perfect Failure, helping you turn your failures into successes and your setbacks into opportunities. Could failure actually be your most underrated superpower? But according to Christina Gerakiteys, it just might be. Christina is a renowned speaker, founder, coach, and author who spent her career helping entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs not just bounce back from failure, but build their biggest successes on top of it. We explore the surprising wisdom behind Christina's book, Celebrating Success, One Failure at a Time, her personal struggle with perfectionism, and why the most progressive companies reward their staff by taking bold, messy risks. Christina also shares practical ways to use reflection and community to reshape our beliefs around failure. So if you're looking for a new, bold take on failure, innovation, and what it really takes to succeed, listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates, and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today I'm super excited because I have another amazing guest for you. So joining us today is the CEO of UtopiaX, author of Celebrating Success, One Failure at a Time, and founder of IdeaSparx, an innovation platform. She is a sought-after international keynote speaker, facilitator, and program designer, creating interactive educational experiences driven by design, thinking, purpose, engagement, and play. The programs disrupt current mindsets to moonshot thinking, exploring what is possible rather than what is accepted. So a very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Christina Gerakiteys. I haven't said that correctly.
Very good. You did. That was pretty good.
Okay, lovely. Christina, excited to have this conversation with you because of researching it's extraordinary all the different things that you do. You wear different hats, all blended together really to help people like me and everybody else or your clients and anybody that really is looking to understand how they can really drive their ability to communicate and actually deal with the challenges that we come up, I guess, definitely in the workplace, but I'm sure in our personal lives as well. The subject, My Perfect Failure, is about failure. It's about how we transcend difficult moments when they arise. And I know that Ian connected us. I was super excited because it's lovely to meet somebody that's got some expertise in this area and somebody that I can learn from. But where I wanted to start was at the beginning for you in terms of your relationship with failure. When did failure become something that you thought there's something going on here, and I think that maybe I need to learn about this, and then obviously it moved on to helping your clients and people all over the world with this subject?
Yeah, a really interesting question. Thank you for asking. I think it came with doing a lot of work in the startup community and working with CEOs and executives who had experienced some kind of failure. Let's go back to the startup community. So I do a lot of advising. I'm on some advisory boards with a number of startups, and the number of times they've gone, I just feel like giving up. Like I just want to give up. And I go, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but I want you to tell me that in a week. I want you to go away and I want you to think about the successes that you've had. And I wasn't actually talking in terms of successes or failures, but it was more like, okay, go away and figure out all the wins you've had and then figure out the losses, or figure out the victories and figure out the times where you just really did want to fall over. And if in a week's time you want to come back and go, hey, I've had enough, can't take it anymore, want to go and get a 9-to-5 job, then I will support you in whatever that is. Because everybody's not cut out to be a startup or an entrepreneur, or everyone's not cut out to be a CEO or an executive. So I think we need to be in control of writing our own playbook. And then also in that experience, I had worked with some incredible startups, or actually scale ups, small businesses. The terminology has changed over the years through things like I used to run the most innovative companies breakfast. And so I would meet people who had worked at BlueChilli, or who had organised things like, Jen Holland, who I interviewed in the book, who had an amazing invention called throat scope. And through a series of questions and discussions and having them on panels and things like that, I realized that their life was, it was the typical up and down roller coaster of small business entrepreneurs, but let's just call it life in general. And I realized that it's something that we all go through at various times, in various points. We handle it in different ways. And that's when I went, I've got so much information, and it would be a disservice to people that don't have access to that information not to put it out there. And that's how we kind of came up with the book. So in the beginning, it was all these people were guests on events that I had, and they were on panels and things like that. And then it turned into, hey, you've got an amazing story that would really help encourage some of these other startups that I'm advising to keep going, or to go, hey, enough's enough. So it was a combination of a series of events that I'm really grateful that I had. And then I started going into, oh God, all the failures that I've had in my life, and what was it that actually made me get up and go again. So it was all those kind of conversations, realizations, awareness factors that led to the book, and that led to celebrating success one failure at a time.
Amazing story and amazing insights. And it feels like the book was an incredible journey of discovery in terms of the people that you interviewed, the people that you've helped along the way. And even the interesting bit for me, everything you said, is also your bit as well. The fact that, I guess, when you delved into this, you mentioned that you looked at maybe my failures along the way. Before you did the book, were you conscious of your failures or things that you challenged with? And in terms of what they were, or did you just glide through them in terms of how you approached your challenges?
I wish it was a glide through them. I think what it made me do is go back and go, okay, all those times where I felt shameful, or I felt I'd failed somebody, or all those times that didn't go the way I wanted them to. And I did a thing called, so I've done some work with Simon Sinek's Start With Why team. And in that process, you do what we call a life timeline. And you kind of go, here's all the highs in my life, here's the lows in my life, what are the common themes that are coming through? And then I realized that a lot of the times there was a lot of the lows were built on a shame factor. Yeah. And where did the shame come from? And it came from a sense of failure. And then I went, well, but these things kind of all led to where you got to, and they were learning experiences and da. So it was in that analysis of my own perceived failures. And then I've got a really interesting story that I've shared a couple of times, but I'll share with you again, on where I realized where my sense of failure came from, right? So my very first failure was when I played piano. I was about 6 or 7. I had played piano on a grand piano. I was doing a recital, played on a grand piano for the first time ever, had no idea where middle C was. I was only doing like preliminary or one of the very early grades, played a concert, sat at the piano, didn't know where the starting note was, picked the wrong one. Everything was atonal, sounded terrible. I kind of got up. I shrugged. Found my dad in the audience. I shrugged my shoulders and went, oh, well, it sounded bad, but that was it. Everyone in the audience laughed, clapped, and I got off stage. But I didn't remember that when I was going through all these other shameful experiences, failures. It was only when I did the hindsight and the retrospect. And when I sat down and went, well, where did my first sense of shame, failure come from, and where was that? What led to that? I remember a conversation again I had with my dad, and my dad was a serial entrepreneur. So he had been in business, and the roller coaster ride for him had been incredible, like non-stop roller coaster ride. Anyway, Dad, I came home from school one day and I said, hey, Dad, I got 98% in my maths test. I came first in the class, da, 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 da. And Dad, with all great intention, went, ha, 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 what happened to the other 2%? And I went, oh my God, I'm a failure because I didn't get 100%, right? So that kind of then, I identified
Okay,
that
yeah.
many years later, as perfection. It had to be perfect or it was considered a failure.
Mm,
So then when I'm looking back at this timeline, I'm going, that wasn't really a failure. Just because it wasn't a perfect
mm,
outcome didn't make it a failure. So it was like, I've been very blessed in my life to have had moments of great reflection. And I've had 3 transformational experiences in my life where I went to a course and completely changed my outlook on a whole lot of things. And I think one of the first ones I went to had me look at things like that and where those ideas had come from and where that sense of failure came from and why the sense of perfection. And then that was compounded when I went to the Hoffman process a couple of years ago. It was like, let's figure out where all these things come from. So it's because I've had I've had opportunities and put myself in places of opportunity where I could reflect.
yeah.
And I think that led to a whole lot of things. But the book itself, that was a 7-8 year journey. So even that felt like a sense of failure in its own way, because I went, okay, hey, all you entrepreneurs, I'm going to do this book and I'm going to put it all together and let me interview you and da 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 da. And this was in 2016, 2017, right? So all the interviews are happening. I've told people I'm going to put out this book. And then I'd go, oh my God, I'm not game enough to put it out. What if people don't like it? What if it doesn't come out right? What if? And so that led to putting the book off. And then I'd go, no, I've got to do this book. I've had all these amazing conversations with incredible people. They've got to get out there. So I'd email them and go, hey, I know it's been a little while, but I'm really going to do it now and we're going to put it out. And can you just give me an update? And then I'd go through the same thing again. I'd go, no, you
Yeah.
can't do that. Yeah. So it was this cyclical event that eventually I just went, and I wrote about that in the book as part of the sense of failure. Like, I should have had the book out years earlier. But then I went, in hindsight, I go, well, there's a lot of conversation around failure. Like, when did you decide to do My Perfect Failure as a podcast? I think there's much more acceptance if we talk in those terms. And the rhetoric has been around for a little while now, like fail fast, fail forward,
Mm.
all that kind of conversation. So it was almost like, in hindsight, again, now is a good time. Or 2 years ago when I released the book, it was a good time for the book to come out. So hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with this podcast, it took me probably 18 months from the idea seeded in my head
Mm.
for me to get around to getting it out. And I was counseled two or three people. They had an idea, I wasn't confident it was a good idea. And I just needed people to say, actually, it's a good idea. I like it. And then it was, okay,
Mm.
let's do it. That's a fascinating story and journey. So when you engage your entrepreneurs at the start of that process, did it become aware to you that what I find really interesting as well is that it appears to me that when you spoke to the entrepreneurs, they gleaned far deeper into their failures than their successes. Was that something you found in the process?
Yes, initially. So I think, and when we go successful, so I intentionally didn't interview anybody that was high level, like an Atlassian or a Canva or anybody like that. Not saying that they would have allowed me to interview them, but I deliberately didn't go
Mm,
after that level. I wanted it to be people who were doing their best to create something that was, entrepreneurial, scalable, and how they had gone about that. And so again, they had a rocky road, and they've all got these most amazing stories, and none of the stories are the same. None of their definitions of failure and success are exactly the same. There's variance along the way. My book advisor, I decided, when I finally decided to do the book, Jackie Lane, my book advisor, because I needed to be accountable to somebody to make sure that I got
yeah.
it done this time, right? And I said to her, just as in passing in one of our conversations, Jackie, what's your definition of failure? And she said, I don't believe in failure. And I went, what? How can you not believe in failure? Like, failure is just, it should be this stepping stone to success, another kind of cliche. Anyway, she went away and thought about it, and she emailed me back and she said, I need to talk to you about this because I think I do have a sense of failure, and I do have a definition of failure, and which is all in the book. Anyway, we had a conversation, and I listened to her story, which was, again, this like high success. Oh my God, everything's kind of gone. Next success, everything's gone. And I said, I need you to be in the book. I said, I don't just need you to be my book advisor. I need you to take a chapter in the book, which was incredible that my book advisor had a chapter in the book. She's amazing, actually. If anyone wants to do a book, please contact Jackie Lane, the book advisor. But I found that with a lot of the entrepreneurs. And, Jen Holland tells a story. So Jen, I was doing some promo work with her. She's Throat Scope, she was. Now she's Holland Healthcare. She's actually sold Throat Scope. But so Holland Healthcare, they were up for an award in New York, an innovation award in New York City, right? So woman from Australia had this idea. She was on the original Shark Tank. Went to New York City, phones me and says, I only got second. And I went, what? She said, I only got second. I didn't win. And I went, are you serious? Can you hear what you're saying? Like, you got second in an innovation competition in New York City. That's pretty incredible. Like, let's celebrate. Anyway, so, there's, every single one of the entrepreneurs that I interviewed had this down experience that if you look at it through different eyes, you go, but that was amazing. Like, what a story to tell. What a great way to be able to build on that. There are a couple of instances that cost people a fair bit of money. Like, a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly, roughly 10 years ago, were spending a whole lot of money on websites and being promised deadlines and being promised what the website would be able to do, and then the website would fail them miserably. So, a lot of people actually lost money. I've worked with so many entrepreneurs who lost money on building amazing websites, which was that's heartbreaking when you put not only your heart and soul, but you put the cash that, isn't readily available into something, and it kind of doesn't work out. But the ability to get back up and keep going, and that resilience factor. And what I found was the people that did reach this level of success, and success is different for everybody, right? So we're not talking unicorns, we're not talking billionaires, we're talking about people that make a great living helping other people achieve what they need to achieve as well. So all the stories in the book have got a sense of service to community and to other people, to other businesses, but they achieved that. They're not billionaires, they're not unicorn organisations, but they are very comfortable in what they're doing, and they've had a great impact on a great number of people. And it's that resilience and that determination that allowed them to get there, to have that impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that, just going through this process where you've interviewed lots of people and you've been able to glean lots of different pieces of information, do you think that failure, the concept of it, in hindsight, having done the book, is something that could be or should be explored like earlier? Like, when I don't know what at what age, but I don't know what your thoughts are around that.
Yeah, I think I'm on a mission to redefine what failure is. So if we can actually have people believe that failure is a stepping stone, like if we turn the rhetoric into reality, so it is a stepping stone to success. Yes, fail fast. Yes, fail forward. So all those things, rather than the shame. So if somebody, it's different if somebody fails intentionally or they fail you intentionally. That's not what I'm talking about. If you've given something a go and it doesn't work, and yet everybody wants to go, oh, see, I knew it wouldn't work, see, and that there's that shame factor. Or, in Australia, there's the whole sense of the tall poppy syndrome, and sometimes we like to pull people down. I'm not going to say we, because I don't like to do that. So there is an element in the culture of pulling successful people down, but there's more and more people now going, that's fantastic, let's elevate that. And I know we had a prime minister a little while ago who went, okay, we're going to, we are going to fail fast, we're going to fail forward, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But then as soon as somebody put a foot wrong in cabinet or Senate or wherever it was, they were asked to resign. And you go, well, you have to walk your talk. If you're really going to change what this means, you have to walk the talk. So I'm on a mission to redefine failure. So if people can actually identify what failure is for them, what success is for them, then I think that's really an important thing to do, and to reevaluate as you go. Your idea of failure and success changes. Like I said, when I stuffed up completely the piano recital, I had no idea that potentially there could have been a sense of shame aligned with that, because it was the first time I'd played the grand piano. I had no idea really. I mean, it just taught my piano teacher that I had no idea where the keys were on the piano, and I went with the key link on the piano rather than where the C key was. Learned a lot from that. But it was kind of, at what point does the shame set in? At what point does the finger pointing set in? And I think if we can get it way back then, that alleviates a sense of shame, builds confidence, etc. But as you go into the working arena, and it's up to organisations. So some organisations have amazing support. So BlueChilli, who I mentioned earlier, who won one of the most innovative companies awards in Australia, New Zealand. They don't operate as they did anymore. But this is back then, and they used to have what was called the Golden Rooster Award. And so what would happen is, if you had the worst idea of the week, you would fill in an application form. You would get, if you won, you would get the Golden Rooster. It would sit on your desk. They actually called it the Golden Cock, but it would sit on your desk. But in order to have had that, you have to explain to everybody why it was a bad idea, and everybody in the whole organisation learnt. So yes, it was a celebrated failure that everybody learnt lessons from, that people then didn't repeat. So that is failure as a success. That is going, hey, this is a stepping stone. This is something that we all learn from. This is a shared experience. You gave us a great lesson this week. We're going to reward you for that lesson. We're going to put this golden rooster on your desk, which I found quite amusing anyway. But, it's that kind of sense of culture. So where in your culture do we actually lift people up and reward people for having ideas, even if they don't work? And I think that once we conquer that globally, then we'll lose the sense of disrespect and shame that comes with failure. And then it does become a stepping stone to how we find success, or, whatever words you want to put around it.
Yeah, really interesting. And it just gets me thinking about lots of different things, but particularly around businesses and companies where there can be, I've had experience of this working in companies where you might be in a meeting and you might have an idea or a thought. Maybe you don't want to put that forward because you might think, well, I wonder how people are going to interpret it. It's just an idea that's come into my head, and I think it could be quite an interesting idea to pursue, but you don't, maybe even in my cases, even in my case, maybe I haven't advanced that idea or thought. Do you think that not stifling ideas, stifling creativity, and maybe making, if we're not confident about an idea, does that stifle innovation?
I think so. Yes and no. So it depends on the personality of the person. It depends on the experience that person's had and where they're sitting within the organisation. So we're actually working on the IdeaSparx platform that you mentioned before. Is an idea platform where you can go on and put your idea and then just see what the reaction is. We've intentionally not put a thumbs down button on it, because you either like the idea or it doesn't interest you. And there's no such thing as a bad idea. Peter Diamandis from Singularity University says the day before an idea is a great idea, it's a crazy idea. So if we look at what's happening in the world now, you go, well, but you'd known about it 20 years ago, you'd know that's never going to happen, and that's ridiculous, and how crazy is that? But look at where we are now, and you've only got to look back into some of the sci-fi, the Star Treks and the Jetsons and things like that, to go, oh my God, they had flying taxis and they had flying jetpacks. And what have we got now? We've got flying taxis about to trial, or they are trialing already. And we've got David Browning in the jetpack and things like that. So once upon a time, something that was a crazy idea has now become a great idea, because the jetpacks that David Browning has are being used by first responders. And what they're doing is they're saving lives without putting helicopter pilots or crews or whatever in danger, because you put the jetpack on, you can go and pick somebody off a cliff, or you can go and get somebody in a more dangerous situation and pluck them out of that situation, and help them safely and in a much better and a much faster way. So all these things that were crazy ideas have been good ideas. And sometimes we don't call them crazy ideas, we call them bad ideas, but there are a lot of bad ideas out there, but we don't know they're bad ideas until maybe we've trialed them. And there's no shame in having an idea. I mean, there's one of my favorite, so I use it in a keynote. in the keynote talk, and there's a baby and it's got this rag kind of fluff, the long-ended mops. It's got those long-ended fluffs on it, and they thought it would be a good idea as kids are crawling around because they could wear this thing and they could clean the floor while they were doing it. That was a bit of a tacky idea and it never took off. So that there's a really good funny book called The Klutz Book of Innovations that has a lot of these ideas that never made it featured in it, and you kind of go, yeah, I'm kind of glad that didn't take off. But I don't think there's no such thing as a bad idea. There are cruel ideas and mean ideas, and they're a completely different category, and I'm not talking about those at all. But I don't think there is such a thing as a bad idea. But in reference to your question, I think it depends on how much confidence you've got, how you've been brought up, what your first sense of failure was. I think there's a whole package behind how you're going to react.
Fascinating. No, I'm just thinking, if there are, I don't know, managers or executives or even founders listening to this now, and they're thinking about their own business, is their own business in a place where they aren't fully exploring ideas? Maybe they're not confident that they are. Are there things that they can maybe look at? Obviously, they can get the book, and we'll put a link to the book in the show notes. But do you have any tips or advice for people maybe to explore that? Maybe there's more potential in their business. Maybe there's more potential in their staff. Maybe there's more potential in them.
Yeah. So the platform is built for entrepreneurs, built for large organizations, so that managers can encourage people to put in ideas. So that was one thing that also came out of the book. But we're actually writing, believe it or not, we're going into organizations and writing success to failure or failure to success, whichever word they choose to want to put first, strategies. So the whole thing is, if your organization has the strategy behind it, like an innovation strategy, like you have a business plan, like you have a business strategy, if you absolutely understand what it means within your organization, and that if I put an idea in and it doesn't work, doesn't mean I'm going to get the sack, and doesn't mean that that I'm not going to be asked to put another idea in at a separate time or whatever. So if you actually have a success to failure, failure to success strategy, then you're going to encourage people to actually put more ideas in. And some of the greatest inventions everybody knows about, well, most people know about Post-its and how Post-its came from an entrepreneurial idea. A lot of people don't know that the hot fire Cheetos, they were actually an entrepreneurial idea as well. And Nestle have got the Soothe and Chew, and that was an entrepreneurial idea. So sometimes these ideas that come from within the organizations end up making like Post-its, $1 billion a year for the organization. The same with Cheetos. Cheetos has its own little portfolio, makes the organization about $1 billion a year. So to cut things off, and we have a saying that says the fish rots from the head down. So if you're a CEO, your executive aren't supportive of innovation, it doesn't matter whether your idea is a success or a failure. It's not going to go. It's not going to run. So organizations need to be very mindful that in today's day and age, we need to be innovating consistently. Doesn't mean that you have to come up with a brand new product or a product line or a portfolio or whatever every year, but you need to be listening to the people, particularly on the front of your business, and see what their experiences are. What are your customers asking for? Where are things not doing what potentially they could do, and then again, there's that crazy ideas department. Peter Diamandis says that every organization should have a crazy ideas department. Apple had one, Google had one. They're not all operating now. Some of them have stopped them, but Google had that 1 day a week where you can work on any project that you want, and that's where the Google Drive and everything else came from. So those kind of freedoms, they're not freedoms, they're opportunities. So it's not really freedom, it's an opportunity to work at that level and to have that imagination and to be able to put things out there into the organization. And I'm also not saying that everybody wants to do that. So the other side of that is some people want to create these new projects. There's also the people, and this is what we've tried to do with the platform. There's people that want to encourage the idea, or they want to work at an idea, because you have the visionary that's got the idea, that has the innovation, that is usually the one that is gung-ho on the success and has the setbacks, etc., feels the failures, doesn't want to fail the organization, because they're pretty high achievers as well. But once they've got that project happening, there's other people that you need. You've got the visionary, but you need the doer. You need the person that's going to go, hey, I'm really practical. I know how to make this happen. And this idea really ignites me and I want to see it through to success. You need my skills, Mr. Visionary, Mrs. Visionary. If you just keep having visions, but we don't actually follow up on the actions that are required to see that vision to fruition, it's not going to happen either. So we need a whole lot of different types of personalities, types of business acumen, etc., behind an idea to make it happen.
Absolutely. Does it excite you, the opportunity there is around organizations, small or large, whatever size, medium size, finding a new approach with failure? If they use it as an opportunity, even they can use it as innovation, an opportunity to give their staff more freedom to have initiative and ideas.
Absolutely. Because what they've also found is that there's higher retention, there's higher loyalty, there's higher engagement with the people within your organization if you allow that to happen. So if you've got people being a positive, like contributing in a positive way, they're going to stay with you longer, they're going to be more loyal, they're going to give you their best. So many benefits from the ability to be entrepreneurial within an organization, to have some kind of contribution, to know that what you're doing is making a difference and having an impact. We all basically want to know that what we're doing is worthwhile. We want to have that sense of purpose. That's what drives us. And luckily, we've all got different senses of what our purpose is. Otherwise, we'd all be clones and we'd all be walking around doing exactly the same thing. And thankfully, that's not what happens. And I think to your question, totally excites me that we can give people opportunity to make the world a better place, to make your workplace a better place, to make your family life better, like to go home and be satisfied with what you've done in a day's work is such a bonus. Like just that relief and that engagement and the joy that it gives you to have contributed rather than to be blocked all the time and to have people go, no, you can't do that, and that's awful and that's terrible. There's such a difference in people going home from amazing organizations to people going home where they're very restricted.
Yeah, and it just makes me think about those restricted companies and those restricted mindsets that historically have just operated one way, where failure is just a word that isn't used, isn't tolerated, and I guess initiative is stifled, and people pretty much go in and do exactly what they're paid to do, nothing more, essentially what's on the tin. Do you have any thoughts about maybe people that secretly are listening to this and think, actually, that's me? Do you have any thoughts about maybe they can evolve and really create opportunities, not just for them, but for their business, but for their company?
Yeah, so there's two sides to that. You either, and there's nothing wrong with having a job where you go and you contribute from whatever the hour is to whatever the hour is that you go home, and you have done the best to contribute to that, and you have played your role, etc. But then you get that satisfaction and that joy elsewhere. You might volunteer for a sports team, or you might play sports, or you might, so it's not a one size fits all thing. But if I have been in a situation, and again, part of the learning, part of the hindsight, where I was working in an organization and luckily I was only there for like 6 months, because I was on a 6-month contract and I knew that it was coming to an end. But I was so stifled, and it was in the creative industry. So I was working for an agency, and the agency just like stifled any sense of creativity or whatever. And I literally felt sick. Like if I didn't have the deadline, I would have left. And so I think if you're in a situation that makes you miserable, that makes you sick, you have two options. You either go, okay, I'm just going to do what I need to do my job, etc. Because it's not easy to say, oh well, you should leave. And maybe you should leave and an opportunity will come up, or maybe you look for opportunities at the same time, and then when the opportunity comes up, then you leave. So again, people have different circumstances. People have families to feed. People have things that they, mortgages or whatever it is that you're obliged to carry with you. So I think it's a mindset shift. So you can change you can shift your mindset. We think it's difficult, but it's actually, if you have the right tools and the right people around you, and then you're finding that joy somewhere else, in something else. And I'll give you, so the example that I often use is, I have, so the supermarket where I go to, and I don't do my shopping online because I actually like meandering down the aisles. Okay. I don't like unpacking the groceries, and that has to happen whether I shop down the aisle or shop online. But I have, I observe this gentleman who is on the checkout, and his checkout line is longer than everyone else's. Okay. So even if there's a shorter checkout line somewhere, his is longer. And it's because he makes people feel welcome. He talks to people, he engages with them. Nobody has gone through, in my observation, where they haven't left with a smile on their face because of their interaction with him, right? And you go, this is the groceries. And these people are walking away because an individual. Now, if he had his choice, I don't know what kind of job he would be doing. When I actually speak to him, he spends his money at rock concerts and, enjoying music and things like that. So for him, it's a means to an end, and he gets his joy at the concerts. But I would almost guarantee, and I can't guarantee because I'm not him, and I haven't asked him the question, and maybe, in response to your question, maybe I will. He makes people feel better, and that must give him a sense of joy, as well. So it doesn't matter what job you do. I think it's the mindset that you go into it with. And I think if you can make someone's day, smile at somebody, have a conversation, it doesn't matter how maybe bad the situation is. And there are some pretty toxic cultures, but we need to protect ourselves against it, the toxicity actually getting in. And there's no reason for an organization to have a toxic culture. So that's another part of our work,
Yeah.
Let's where does that come from? And it usually comes from fear and ego.
Absolutely. It's fascinating talking to you. We don't have much time, so I want two questions in, if I may. Reflection. You mentioned reflection at the top of this. How important is it, or how much of an opportunity is it for people now that are listening, maybe to think about their own situations, and maybe think about something that's happened to them in the past, and maybe how that might be stifling them in terms of whether it's from a personal perspective, or maybe from their company's perspective, or maybe if they manage people, maybe there's something there that they can unravel that maybe can really skyrocket their impact from a personal perspective, or maybe from a business perspective.
So I think reflection is really important. And when you catch yourself having a blockage, or you catch yourself having a reaction to something, ask why. Some people have reactions because they've had horrible things happen to them in their lives. And in that case, I go, please go and talk to somebody, go and see what it is that you can do. I don't believe, like, people will go, I just get over it. I don't believe you get over anything. I think you need to find a way to assimilate whatever it is into your life, so that it doesn't make you sad, bring you down all the time. But talk to people, or put yourself in a situation, join a group, have a conversation with your best friend and go, hey, I had this reaction the other day to this and I'm not sure where it came from. Let's have a conversation about it. So there's a lot of different ways. And I'm not a psychologist and I'm not an expert, but for me, it's been very much in meditation, walking, journaling, and that's where I do most of my reflection.
Okay, lovely. And book, Celebrating Success, One Failure at a Time. Where's the best place for people to get that? I'm going to put a link in the show notes, but if people want to maybe find it, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, so go to my website, ChristinaGerakiteys.global, and there's a link to the book. We've also got a course, 30-minute, very short course, that you can do in 3 sections, and that's available there as well. So book and course, even if you just have a conversation around what your ideas around celebrating success are and what your definitions of success and failure is, then for me, that's a win.
So lovely. And so there's lots of different hats you wear. So you've got UtopiaX, you've got IdeaSparx. I know you do stuff with Singularity University. So if the people that want to get in contact with either of those, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Yeah, either on LinkedIn or through the website.
Okay, lovely. Fantastic. So all links will go on the show notes. And I think this is the last question. If you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, alive or past, who would you invite?
Oh gosh, this is such a difficult question. Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. So he wrote the book in 1937, and for me, it's all about manifesting the reality that you want to live in. So I would definitely like to invite him for dinner. I think people like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, people that have had that high, Mary Teresa, like Mother Mary Teresa, anyone who's had that impact at a high social, emotional, human justice level, I would like to say to them, help me have the same social justice impact that you've had.
Okay.
I know I said 4, but I'll go 4.
Okay. Well, they're amazing people, so you can get 4 in. Christina, thank you so much. This has been fascinating, and I hope we can do this again, because I feel that I think I've tapped a fraction of your knowledge base. So I would love to sort of delve in and extract more, even from a selfish perspective. But thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing.
I'd love to talk to you again. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. And I love the name of your the name of the podcast, My Perfect Failure. I love it.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. We're always looking to grow the show. So if you are watching on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button. And your feedback is very important. So keen to hear about the things you like and equally the things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the contact page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.